Welcome to Work is Good, a CSM podcast. My name is Landon Butaud, and I host the show with my dad, Chris Butaud, the owner and president at CSM. Today's episode is a conversation I had with Duncan Sakai. Duncan is the performance marketing manager over at Caddis, which is a company that primarily manufactures reading glasses. Duncan has a wealth of knowledge around paid social media ads, so if you're someone who has any interest in using Facebook ads and similar programs, then I think this conversation will be really valuable for you. It gets a little technical, and I think that's where the value is on this one. It's really interesting to hear his strategy and the things they're thinking through to maximize their effectiveness over there at Caddis, where they are heavily investing a lot of time and money to do this really well, and they're seeing the benefits of it. So quick reminder, if you are interested in working with us to help you get a mortgage, go check us out at clevelandstreet.com, and please enjoy today's conversation. All right, Duncan, thanks for joining me today. I'm here with Duncan Sakai, and Duncan's an old friend, and excited to hear about what he's doing in marketing for Caddis over there. Duncan, I'll let you go ahead and take it away. Just give us a brief background of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on the podcast, Landon. So my name is Duncan, like Landon said. I work in primarily paid media. So I run a lot of advertisements, whether that be on paid social, display, a little bit of search here and there. That's kind of what I'm doing now. Caddis is a direct-to-consumer business, so we focus primarily on e-commerce, driving traffic to the website, and sales are kind of my go-to objective. So
awesome. Did you? I'm gonna miss it. Did you say your product? What are you selling?
I apologize. Caddis is a company that sells primarily reading glasses, and we also do like blue light blockers, sunglasses, sunglass readers, etc. So yeah, in the eyewear.
Cool. Awesome. Great. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and let you give a little bit of background as to your time in marketing. Where's your focus been over the years, and did you study marketing?
College?
So okay.
I did study marketing for about 2 years. That's kind of when I jumped into the entrepreneur side of things. So I was presented with an opportunity from some colleagues of mine to enter like a marketing pitch competition. So doing elevator pitches, and that's where we kind of developed a business for local advertising. So we came up with the idea of doing advertising on to-go boxes for restaurants. So we would pair like local businesses with local restaurants. The cost of the advertising campaign would cover the cost of the to-go boxes, so we would be providing a service for the restaurants for free, stuff like that. Sure. So it was super fun. We ended up winning that competition, so we decided to take it further and entered a bunch of competitions throughout Idaho and Washington, and ended up winning, I would say, $10,000 to $15,000.
That's great.
Throughout the course of it all. It was a huge learning opportunity, and we never really took it past competitions. So we kind of built the business, created market plans, did our research, and then we had some colleagues who graduated. I wanted to move to Central Oregon to be with my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and so we kind of just called it a win and moved on from there.
That's great. So I love it. So when did you start getting into the weeds of understanding paid ads on social?
Yeah, so pretty much directly from there, I joined a digital marketing agency. So in moving to Bend, joined this agency that was doing a lot of local advertising with Facebook and Instagram. So I jumped in as a content creator and then quickly moved into account management, where I was actually running the back end ads for these businesses, and learned the ins and outs of meta advertising as it would be called now. But at the time, it was just Facebook and Instagram.
So was that just, were you trained on the details of those, or was that just figure it out by trying it out, or YouTube, or how'd you learn the actual like technical side of that?
Yeah, so some of it came from my peers' knowledge, just learning from them, but most of it came from just doing my own research and
Yeah.
figuring out as I went along. Um, the nice thing about doing it from an agency is that I had the experience of working with a wide range of brands, whether it was something as simple as like a local restaurant to direct to consumer e-commerce brands. So got the wide gamut and kind of figured out, what campaign styles would work best with each company.
Yeah. Yeah. That's neat. That's really cool. So I was filling you in a little bit before. I run a meager ad campaign for Cleveland Street, and part of the challenge I've had is taking the information that's widely available on YouTube as a beginner who, I understand the value of Facebook ads and the opportunity that's there and other social. Um, but I also understand that a lot of the value is in actually executing it well and getting the details right. And um, and I know that I don't understand those fully. Um, and so yeah, part of the frustration has been taking the information that's widely available and then actually being able to execute on the details. So if you're
Yeah.
talking to a beginner who needs a little bit of direction in terms of principles to understand um, about setting up a good campaign, about having a good approach uh, to social paid ads,
Mhm.
but then also direction in terms of, okay, beyond this podcast, where are some good resources to, once you start to get into the weeds of it, to consult with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many opinions out there of how to do it well, and they all differ from each other. So I
Sure.
totally get it. It's
Yeah.
hard to kind of pinpoint what the best way to do it is, and I think it kind of depends on the business that you're running. But I'd say for the most part, whatever platform you're using, whether it's like meta-related platforms like Facebook and Instagram, whether you're running TikTok ads, Snapchat, whatever it may be, each platform has really good resources to kind of teach you how to use their own platform, right? Because
Mm,
that's how they make their money.
right.
So their best business move is to teach you how to do it.
Right.
So like Facebook has Facebook Blueprint, where it's like a class style format where you go through and it walks you through the basics to some more advanced techniques. So yeah. Um,
Gotcha. That's helpful. Um, any best practices, main principles that you've taken away in terms of, and again, obviously it's going to vary product to product, business to
mhm.
business. Um, but what have been some key learning points for you in maybe in strategy, but probably most, I'm interested in the tactics. What have been some main learning points for you?
Yeah, totally. So I would say for the most part, um, each platform is on, let's say, an auction-based format. So you're basically putting your ad out there, bidding against the audiences that you want to reach, and you're thrown into a pool of other businesses who are targeting the same people with the relative same amount of money, and you're bidding against them. So what you can really do to make yourself stand out is really focusing on the creative that you're using. The algorithm will do what the algorithm does best, which is optimize for lower cost, but you can really impact that by researching your clientele, understanding what they want, the things that grab their attention, and
Hmm.
then utilizing that in your creative. So I think
Yeah.
like paid media is getting more and more expensive because it's measurable and really easily so.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to put money into something that they can tell right off the bat if it's working or not. Um, so yeah, really standing out with your creative is kind of the way to win the easiest.
Yeah. Uh, this is a very broad question. So how do you make sure you're using, especially when you don't have a big business, if you have a small business and you're not someone who specializes in the creative. Um, one somewhat intuitive tip I've seen was use what does well in organic, and then just put you that's proven it's going to do well. And so that's the only way I personally know of. I'm actually confident when I put this out because it did well in organic. It's it's good. Beyond that, I don't really have a good eye for, what's good. You talked about researching your audience, which is helpful. Practically, what does that look like to know if it's effective creative?
Yeah, totally. So I think what you mentioned of using your organic content and then using it for your advertising is one of the easier ways to do it. That's how I still do it a lot of the time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's one of the more effective ways to test and learn and iterate is to run it for free first, see how it
hmm
does, and then put money behind it after. So I think that's a really great strategy you have going. Um, I would say testing and learning is huge, no matter if you're spending like $1 behind something or $100,000 behind it. You're always going to need to continue to test and learn because there's something called creative fatigue that happens if you run an ad for too long. People get bored of it, tired of it, and then it just fades into the background.
yeah,
So you're always bringing in new stuff.
yeah,
And so that keeps your test and learn process always moving forward.
yeah,
You'll be able to look at the metrics behind something, the click through rate behind it, the website sessions that you're getting, and understand after a while which ones are performing better,
yeah,
and then focus more on those, especially with like limited resources or time
yep,
or energy. Focusing on those like top 5 to 10 performers are
mm,
key.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So you talk about the creative fatigue there and people getting tired of it, and so I'm going to transition and just have you walk me through the life cycle of an ad because yeah, I'll see things as I'm setting up an ad, and it says, our Facebook will prompt me, are you sure you want to do that? Because if you do fewer than this creatives, then, people get tired of it or whatever. And
right.
I just realized that I don't know how it works because in
Mhm.
my thought, when I create an audience and it should, I set up this one ad, it's going to show that ad to that audience. And then there's obviously some tweaks you can make in terms of how long people are in your audience and who you exclude if they've already seen it,
Mhm.
things like that. But but if you exclude those people, um, it seems like you could run something perpetually, and you're
Mhm.
always getting the new people in the way. And so that's why I'm saying, I just see it wrong. So walk me through just kind of the life cycle of an ad and any filling in you need to do in terms of how it works.
Yeah, totally. So I guess I'll start with the basics of an ad specifically on Meta. So you have like 3 levels. One is the campaign level, ad set level, and then the ad level. Campaign level is where you choose your objective. What are you trying to get your user to do? Whether that's fill in a lead form, whether it's click to your website, whether it's complete a purchase. That's kind of where you set that goal. Then you move into the ad set goal, which is where you set your audience. So whether you're running a lookalike based off an email list, or whether you're targeting people age 30 to 40 for their first home buying experience, or what have you. That's kind of where you set that and your budget and your targeting options, etc. And then the ad level is where you actually upload your creative, you choose your call to action, you link to your website. All that happens there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like you were saying, you can set it up in ways that you minimize the amount of time someone sees an ad. So like,
Competitiveness. Yeah.
yeah. So if you don't want someone to see your ad more than twice a week, you can set that at the ad set level, and then that'll kind of take care of that. But yeah, so I guess from the direct to consumer e-commerce perspective, Meta is a great tool for acquisition. And we have kind of internal tools like email for retargeting. So I'm primarily targeting people who have never bought before. So I have a list of people who have bought that I exclude from all my audiences. So in that sense, it's continually trying to reach new people.
Right.
So yeah.
That. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so walk me through a little bit, like a sample for you guys of what a life cycle of an ad would look like from inception to, okay, we're going to take it out of the cycle now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I do an iteration on all the ads that we're running every 2 weeks. So Facebook's algorithm is set up to run things in a testing phase for 50 actions, whatever that might be, whether it's the link clicks, the purchases, what have you. For me, that runs about 2 week life cycle. So I run something for 2 weeks, then I pull it out and analyze it, say, okay, what was the click-through rate? What was the video view watch percentage on this ad? What is this ad telling me? What are the metrics telling me about this ad that I can use to improve the next one? So say I'm running a video for just a standard reader, and I see that the video view watch percentage is really high, but the click-through rate is low. So I would kind of analyze that and say, okay, our creative is interesting, but not interesting enough to make someone click. So I'll take that back and add a stronger call to action to it and see if that would increase engagement in that sense. So yeah, as a general rule, I don't really run things more than 2 weeks unless it's performing really, really, really well and doesn't stop performing well, and then I run it for as long as it'll go.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it just seems like in my mind still, unless you're targeting a very small audience, like so when I set up an ad, for example, the most recent one, let's say it was, the original audience I set up, Facebook told me there's 2 million people in that audience, and then after 2 weeks, it's only gone to it's only shown to 75,000. Like, it is no more old for the next people that it hasn't shown to than it was before it showed to the original people, right? So why are you taking it down at that point?
Facebook will continually show an ad to someone if they haven't bought for a really long time. So like I could see an ad. Even if you exclude them? No. So like if you exclude them and the data matches to a Facebook profile, then they won't see it. Okay. So that's what I do with people who've purchased in the past like 120 days. I exclude them. But for everyone else, maybe they just aren't interested in the ad. Maybe they breeze past it. And so that's when I'll refresh it. Try and keep them engaged. Yeah.
Okay. Last kind of specific question here. What's a helpful way to figure out how much you should be spending on an ad beyond what you have available? In terms of, is there a minimum effectiveness point for, and it varies, campaign to campaign, objective to objective, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But what are helpful ways to figure out, okay, if I'm going to spend this much, then it's not going to do anything for me. So I might as well be spending this much more.
Yeah, great question. I think, like for me, running e-commerce ads targeted to inspire a purchase, I'm looking at how much it's costing both like CPM, which is cost per milli, cost per thousand people, and like cost per purchase. I can match that back to Facebook data. And I'm constantly evaluating an ad based on those numbers. So if it starts to get like more expensive than I deem it's worth, which in my mind would be more expensive than the product itself, then I'll turn that off and pause it or iterate on it, stuff like that. So it's basically what you set as like a success benchmark is kind of the one that you should go with. And that sometimes takes some time to really understand like how your ad account performs on average, and then kind of consider continuing to set goals that beat it. So
right. Yeah, no, that's helpful. So I guess I'll leave you just with kind of a open question here. If you are leaving kind of at a beginning, someone who doesn't have a ton of knowledge about the weeds of paid social, what's a helpful basic approach? Would you recommend digging into it? Is it worth it? What are some resources to look into? Just any final thoughts for someone in that category?
Yeah, totally. So I think if you're first learning it, I would say start with organic. So like posting to your own feed, stories, stuff like that. Because that's where you'll where you'll start to get the knowledge behind how a post or something performs, kind of like what you're doing already. One of the fun things about organic social is that people are starting to use like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok in search related terms. So it starts to become like an SEO strategy as well. With your captions. So it's a really great place for discovery. So as you kind of dabble with organic, you'll start to get like a better read on how your own account is performing. Then you can start, putting money behind the post that you're doing. TikTok has something called Spark ads where you can turn an organic post into an ad with a link click afterwards. So there's a lot of opportunity to use that content that you're already putting out there and put some money behind it and kind of set some benchmarks, figure out how your account is doing with paid, and then kind of reevaluate and see if it's worth putting more money into it or not.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Well, thanks, Duncan. Really appreciate it, man. Super helpful, and excited to pick your brain some more.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Landon.
Thanks for listening to Work is Good. If you enjoyed it, share it with someone else, leave a review, and listen next week.